speaker today. Kirk Jackson has performed on and off Broadway and throughout the United States in nearly 200 productions. Besides being a fine actor, he is also a fine director. He has started directing operas, which should be very interesting to hear about. He's taught at Bennington College since 2001. And as I look at all of the wonderful things that he's done that are in his resume, I do want to say that there is one that stands out particularly for me because I had the pleasure of enjoying it, and that was his performance as Sherlock Holmes. As he does all of his performances, he did that particularly well. And he also has, as I said, I have seen him actually in plays before I knew I saw him. He was in the world premiere of Love, Valor, and Compassion on Broadway, which was a wonderful play by Terence McNally. And he has done work throughout the country, so it is with great pleasure I asked Kirk to come up and talk about drama at Bennington College.
Thank you, Sally. I'm going to set my alarm, my stopwatch, as a director, and in class all the time I'm using my stopwatch. I teach classes where students direct scenes, I teach classes where students create their own work, and I'm constantly timing them, and so I will time myself as well because I'm not, I'm a college professor, I can blab on and on, no problem, about really just about nothing or anything. So we start the stopwatch. Let me make sure I got that right. Okay, here we go. So first of all, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here at Rotary. I have to tell you, my father was a lifelong Rotarian. I think he was a Rotarian for over 4 decades. He was active until into his 90s. My brother is also a member of Rotary over in Albany. I grew up in Delmar, New York. And one of my early memories, actually, of Rotary is about this time of year, there would be a Christmas party and the families would be invited, and invariably it would end with a magician, and my brother would invariably volunteer, not me, the one who ended up on stage professionally, but my brother, who's in the construction business now, would be the one to always get up on stage and make a fool of himself for all of our pleasure. I can tell you 2 good pieces of information for you today. I will not perform magic, and I won't ask for any volunteers. The last time I went to a Rotary meeting, a Rotary luncheon, in fact, was with my father in the early 1990s, and I had just graduated from the Yale School of Drama. I was 33 years old. I was going to take the world by storm. I had been a professional actor already for over 12 years, but now I was going to do something. And the speaker that day was a professional baseball player from like the AAA. I'm not even sure if I have the right terminology, but Albany was having Capital District was starting a AAA or a farm team or baseball team, right? And maybe they're still there. Yeah.
Valley Cats.
Oh yes, and so this was a young man who was in this professional baseball player, but on that level, right? And he talked about how difficult it was to be young, starting out, wanting to dedicate his life to this thing that he loved and this thing that he did well, and working on that level, the amount of money. It's only 9 months a year of employment, and he said how much he made, and there was a slight like, oh, woe is me quality to the speech, and I walked out of there and I said to my father, damn, I want that job. Where's the AAA theater company? I would like to be employed for 9 months, even at that salary, even though, and he talked about the disparity, and the sports and theater are the analogy I'm going to talk about today. The how much they make, the people in the big team, right? Big leagues make inordinate amount of money, more money than they could possibly know what to do with, and how little is afforded for someone who's on the AAA team in Albany. He had a wife, he wanted to start a family, and he couldn't see how it was going to happen. And why I said, wow, I want that, is because in the theater, you usually get a job for about 3 weeks to maybe 3 months. Most jobs in the regional theater are 2 months long. 3.5 weeks of employment and 3.5 to 4 weeks of performance. And then you're unemployed again. And you spend most of your life unemployed rather than employed. And there's a lot of rejection. You know all this. You all know this sort of story, right? You go to 10 auditions in order to get 1 callback. You go to 8 callbacks to get a job. And then the job lasts 2 months. How I got through the 1990s, the time between that Rotary meeting with my dad and the baseball player and Bennington College, about a third of the time in the 90s I was able to get employment as an actor. About a third of the time I could get jobs as a director. And about a third of the time I found places I could teach. And this was not a case, and at Bennington College we are teacher practitioners, we do what we profess, and therefore this is very important. We have to tell our students ourselves, it's not a those who can't do teach situation. And how I know that to be true is because I fell in love with teaching because it was a way for me to be involved in the thing that I love from another direction. I was just as excited about teaching as I was about acting and about directing, and it was a very fruitful time. But this idea of a job only being 3 weeks to 3 months, my life being in these cycles, these short cycles, got very, very tiresome. And I fantasized, what would it be like to think in terms of 18 months? Those of you who are in business know what I'm talking like. It's like, oh my God, what would it be like to say, we're going to make this decision, implement this policy, do this, try this creative choice, and 18 months from now, see, oh, did that work out? Did that not work out? What was positive about that? What wasn't positive about that? So I fantasized about that, and so I decided, well, okay. I looked at my resume, my teaching resume, and it was like, wow, okay, somehow that, I don't know how it happened, but it was impressive. Oh, wow, you taught at Princeton, you taught at Cal Arts, you taught at NYU. I'm gonna run that up the flagpole and see if anybody salutes. And Bennington College saluted. So I was very excited about now working in a situation where we could think in terms of long-range goals. And in fact, I just finished a 2.5-year fellowship. I don't know what you call it. I was a fellow. Yeah, so fellowship. Several faculty members they got money from the Mellon Foundation, the college did, for us to look at the college long range and reinvigorate our commitment to a progressive education and how we can do that. So I got myself involved in all that sort of thing. So here I am, my watch, okay. I successfully navigated my way to the topic, which is drama at Bennington. I did that by first complimenting you all with a personal connection to Rotary. Then I talked about baseball, and of course, talking about sports is way more interesting than talking about theater. And I also talked about a little bit of just my career and my passion and what brought me to Bennington. And I would just a little side note, that's also what brings students there. So you probably all have heard this before, but students at Bennington College, they create their own plan. They decide, and they have to run it by a faculty committee of 3 people. We discuss their plan with them. What should they take? What shouldn't they take in order to fulfill this plan? And it's all about following your passion. And likewise for the faculty. I could go tell a whole other story about my job interview, but I won't go there. But I will say we just interviewed a guy who took the job, thank God, because the person who's retired, the technical director is retiring after 30 whatever years. Fantastic guy, Mike Rancourt. And we have a new guy coming in, and we asked, why are you interested in Bennington? And he said, because you don't have a mascot. I said, yeah, that's why I like Bennington too, because we don't have a mascot. And in a weird way, we don't have sports. We don't have sports. We have a pickup soccer team that anyone can be on, and we have an ultimate frisbee team, and that's about it. And what I have always loved about theater is what I love about sports. The analogy I want you to think about is, imagine you live in Middlebury, and maybe you didn't go to Middlebury College, but they got a hockey team, and the town goes to see the hockey team, and the town people root for the home team, and it's a really fun thing. That's what going to see a play at Bennington College is like. Because at Bennington, I'm jumping ahead, but I was going to say, it's where the arts take the sort of traditional place of the endeavor of the students, where worthy of the same kind of energy, the same kind of commitment, the same kind of devotion, dedication, practice, time that sports does at many other colleges. Obsession, the same kind of obsession, and I can basically kind of say, I'm not sure, but that's kind of why a lot of it's really good. It's not that we're trying to make the best theater possible. I think Sally wants me to say that we make really great theater and y'all should come see it. And that's why she has me here talking. We don't necessarily make the best theater possible, but we make it for a lot of the same reasons why the hockey team exists at Middlebury. Not the reason that you're all thinking right now, make money for Middlebury. And let's divorce, this is what's a problem in college sports, let's divorce the money-making aspect out of it. What are those great reasons for students to partake in that sort of thing, right? So the coach puts together, let me say, it's there as a learning experience, right? You learn teamwork, you learn discipline, you learn to show up and do the work. You learn, and I'm helping you play this out in your head as both hockey students on a hockey team and students doing a play. You learn when to lead and when to follow. You learn how to listen with your body as well as your ears. You learn comradeship based on trust in your teammates, and you learn healthy practice. And so all these things happen when we make theater at Bennington. So, and that is the goal of making it. Not necessarily to make great theater that Sally's going to enjoy, but she does enjoy it, but to give those students that opportunity. So often, and this actually, a little sidebar, years ago there was a student whose brother wrote for the Bennington Banner, and his brother had also gone to Bennington. I knew the kid. He graduated a couple years earlier, and we were doing a Measure for Measure, Shakespeare play Measure for Measure, and this kid was in the play, and he said, "Oh, my brother's going to come and review it for the Bennington Banner." And I said, no, he's not. And in some ways, the college would like the Banner to come and write about what happens on campus. But I didn't put those particular students in that play in order to be critiqued, first of all, by some kid who graduated 2 years earlier, but really by anybody. Often we put people we cast people in the play because it's good for them to do that. It's right for them. It goes with their plan. It says in their plan they want to have this kind of experience, and we're going to give them this experience. The best people are not necessarily always on stage. Usually you have a few ringers of really good people, but all of it is often the purpose is all those principles I talked about. Not necessarily to create the best product, but rather to create the best experience, educational experience for them. And we choose the plays for the same reason. There are other colleges out there, many colleges out there, who sell tickets to the public. And they choose what plays they do based on the same way you would if you were running a Dorset Theatre Festival or Oldcastle or Williamstown, right? You choose certain plays. Oh, we need a mystery, murder mystery, we need a musical, oh, we need a drama, we need a farce, right? We don't choose the plays for that reason, and we don't sell tickets. Anyone from the community is welcome to come, but we don't create, the process for the students is one of a learning experience, and at some point you add the audience because they're the final collaborators. But still, I always make them write an essay about their experience in the play afterwards, and I always say, and what would you what would you continue to work on? It's not over because as a learning experience, there's something more to gain and get better at. And it's kind of like having another game in your season to keep getting better at. So I guess what I was going to say was, I said that, yeah, so going to see a play at Bennington is a lot like going to the home game at any college. Let me just check my watch and make sure they've sat. Because I can talk for a long time.
You got lots of talent.
Okay, so what I also wanted to talk about then is, so I'm pretty sure that I wanted to share with you the principles, basically, of the education at Bennington regarding drama. So we had to define the definition of what we call advanced work at Bennington. And I have to say, a lot of students take a class with us. I'll sit at a graduation and I will count the students who are graduating, and invariably, like a third. Then we graduate, it's a small college, but we graduate about 120 people each year. A third of those people has taken a class in drama. You know, we don't have majors, but the people who put drama as important in their plan, there's usually at least a dozen or more. And like I say, a lot of people partake of the experience in one way or another. So it's a very rich part of anybody's education at the college. But for those who do put it in their plan and want to make it their sort of guide, their goal, we have these definitions. And so it says here, and it's funny because the students are always asking, like, well, what do I need to do to graduate? And I'm like, well, I literally took this off the bulletin board in the hallway. I'm like, well, there's a thing on the bulletin board. Bennington Drama recognizes that the making, doing of theater is not only a public performance, but a daily, disciplined process. An exploration, not a result, a discovery, not a rule. I would venture to guess the best thing that's happening with the Middlebury hockey team is this same principle. Bennington Drama seeks to provide students the opportunities to take risks, the resources to experiment broadly, the support to fail honorably, as well as to succeed honestly. Those last two, I would like to tweet to some people in Washington. If they could possibly fail honorably, that would be okay with us. And if they could succeed honestly, that would be okay. That would be really good. These are principles that anybody, that someone can take into opening a business, to being a partner in a business, to being a teacher, to being a researcher. These are the same sort of principles that you all talk about here at Rotary. We have some more definitions here to get a little more specific. And again, use your imagination to think that you're thinking about either the kid on the hockey team or the person graduating wanting to go into the world of business or the professional world. Understand the principles of collaboration. Ability to analyze and interpret a text, whether you're reading it or hearing it. Develop a sense of a visual and kinetic vocabulary. Ability to work independently to propose, plan, and realize a project. A sense of structure. Recognition of structure. An ability to create structure. Process. A sense of how work is created and ability to foster process. Experience. Ability to allow for all participants' experience of process to affect the work. Function. Ability to ask questions about the purpose the work serves and values. develop a sense of what values are expressed or subverted by the work. So these are the basic principles that we sort of judge or hold the students up for when they reach their senior moments and they're doing their senior work. Have they, are they doing this, have they realized these goals? And I hope they resemble those, I think they resemble those in the Middlebury hockey program minus the money making. Which brings me, of course, back to my first experience of going to a Rotary meeting. Your principles of truth and fairness and goodwill and friendship and benefit for all concerned. I will just finish by sharing with you my latest experience with students in this way. All students can audition for the plays. They don't necessarily have to be taking classes in drama. This past year, I was really dead set. I was going to do this wonderful play called Mr. Burns. Mr. Burns is the character from The Simpsons, who runs the nuclear power plant, right? And it's a post-apocalyptic, post-nuclear meltdown play, and in which all books have disappeared, and people are trying to remember stories. Stories so important to them. So they sit around a campfire and recall episodes of The Simpsons is their only way. And the play is in 3 acts, and it gets more and more involved. The second act is whole companies. 7 years later, whole companies are creating whole episodes. And the third act is 75 years later, in which there's an entire episode done as an opera, a Simpsons episode as opera. So it shows how story becomes myth and becomes important. But the second act ended with people entering the back of the theater with AK-15s and blowing everyone away. And everything that was happening in the world with all the school shootings and all the craziness of it, I was like, I don't want to bring that on campus. I don't want to bring a gun on campus, even a pretend one. And so I said, I'm determined to find a play without a gun in it, which is really hard. Even most of Chekhov's plays have guns in them. So I was having a hard time finding a play that didn't have violence in it. And while I was doing that, I went to go see a club on campus a choir sing on campus. It was a gospel choir. And this is very interesting because this was a girl, a freshman from Arkansas, who's African American, who's a Baptist, who's very devout. She was uncomfortable at Bennington. Bennington College is a very non-religious space, right? People don't talk about religion there. And they're so progressive because they talk about everything else, but they don't talk about religion. And so this girl was uncomfortable at the whiteness of the place, at her Christian faith not finding a place there. And somebody in the music faculty suggested to her, well, why don't you start a club? And so she started a gospel choir. And if you know anything about Bennington students, in your mind, you could try to imagine what this choir might have looked like. We got piercings and things and tattoos and blue hair and people of indiscriminate, unknown genders, and they're singing about going across the river and meeting Jesus on the other side, and it was fantastic. The spirit in the room was fantastic. So I said, we got to support this girl. We have to support this kind of energy on campus. I'm not doing a play with a gun, I'm doing a play with a gospel choir. And so there's this play, what I did this past fall was a play called The Christians by Lucas Nath. And he grew up in a mega church with a mom who was a pastor. And he wrote this play, and it takes place in a mega church. And it features a gospel choir. And it was a great opportunity for me because, first of all, there are only 5 main characters, and usually you have to do a play with lots of people in order to make everybody have more opportunities. But here we put together a choir of 30 people and a band of 5. So we had lots of people involved, and then there's just 5 main characters. And the choir was fantastic. They sounded fantastic. And we even had some people from the community in the choir, staff members, faculty husbands and wives. And they were amazing. What was challenging about the play, what was great about it was that this play does not, you would imagine Bennington College is doing a play called The Christians that takes place in a church. Oh, they're going to make fun of it. No. This play does not condemn nor condone anything about the megachurch cultural world, right? It is every single character speaks truth. And this was a discovery for the students to realize I'm not a single character in this play lies. They always are reaching for the truth, very open-heartedly. They disagree, and there's problems, and one guy leaves the church, and he starts his own church, and then he comes back, and the husband and wife, the pastor and his wife have issues, and there's all these sorts of, there's drama. But they're always truth-seeking individuals, every single one of them, for the entire show. And for students of this generation to not play on their heels and ironic, and I'm saying this, but really I mean that, is really difficult. That is foreign for them, even in their day-to-day life. To be honestly always searching to tell the truth, to open-heartedly be truthful. And they did a really great job. And it was an amazing experience, and it was cathartic for the college. Students were talking about religion openly for the first time in a long time. Also wonderful, it was a wonderful cast. We had a Muslim in the cast. We had a lapsed Catholic. We had a Unitarian. We had a girl who went to Episcopalian school but never went to church. We had, of course, the aforementioned Southern Baptist. We had a Zoroastrian. We had the dramaturg was Jewish, as was the stage manager. So we had this huge, this variety of people involved in the production, but they were all getting behind the gospel and getting behind what it meant, what it means to them in their life. So that's my job. My main job is to encourage, to foster, to cultivate, to build, and to grow empathy by having people pretend to be other people, and by having people watch people be other people. Reaching for truth, it just reminded me so much of your 4 principles. To pick something that benefits the community, and so I picked that to benefit the college community. And if more people had come from the town, that would have been great. You're all welcome. Frankly, we don't advertise a lot because there's not a lot of seats at the home game, right? When the whole college comes out to see the home game, often there's not a lot of seats for the home game, but there's seats, and you are absolutely welcome. And I kind of wish more people from the community had seen this play, because it would not have been what they thought Bennington College would have maybe put up. I was very happy that the people on the custodial staff in the building that we work, in which we work, the Visual and Performing Arts building, don't normally come to see the plays, but they came to see this one. One guy in particular with his wife, and he said, I'm going to sit on the aisle because he's Christian, he was a devout Christian. He's like he was afraid we were going to do something that was going to make him angry. But no, he loved it. He loved it. He was moved by it. And what was really interesting, it moved us, my colleague Michael Giannitti, to make the most brilliant observation, and again, to talk about fairness and goodwill and friendship and in truth. He said, oh, you know, on the back of the program we list the faculty and the staff, but we've never listed the custodial staff. And he said, we should list, why aren't we listing the custodial staff? They work to make our spaces clean. Why aren't we including them? And so that, just doing that play made us go, whoa, let's open up our blinders a little here. So anyway, that's it. I feel like I'm trying to bring it back to the Rotary thing. And that's my job, is to cultivate empathy in the world, and you are invited.
Excellent.
Well,
Oh, yes, yes.
well, I just want to say, having seen that play, and having seen other plays, it was a tremendous experience for the audience. And you felt something with with the way the audience was responding as a group together. That chorus was unbelievable.
I can tell you, I saw a production of it up in Middlebury, not at the college, at Town Hall Theater, with professional actors who were great. And I went with Carrie Ryer Park, who was the music director for us. And we are driving home, we're like, wait a minute, it was bad. Why was it bad? We picked this play to do, but that was bad. We didn't like it. What's the matter? We made a mistake. And we thought about it, we thought about it, we thought about it, and we realized, oh, the play wasn't bad, just the choir was like a Vermont Methodist church choir, like a bunch of women in their 50s and they're all altos. I mean, it was just, you know, there wasn't a single person of color in the choir. No one could like really go crazy and riff on it, you know what I mean? And we were just like, no, the play was about people of faith having doubts about their faith and questions. So the choir, dramaturgically, this is a word we use in theater all the time, storytelling-wise, it had to be balanced by a choir that had no doubt about their faith, right? It had to be boom, like they completely sure. And it's technically, you're sure of your notes, and then that reads as sure of your faith. And so it was, I think, the choir being so, if I can say this, kick-ass, was why, you know, what made the play live so well. And then, of course, I had students who were just phenomenal. Yeah.
In full disclosure, I worked at Bennington College for 20 years as a staff person, so you were on the other side. What are you going to do with the support staff? And Mike's leaving, Danny died, and I don't know where Dave Groupé is, but that's a lot of people to replace.
Yep. This person I mentioned who said, oh, you don't have a mascot. This is Mike Rancourt's replacement. Okay. So we had a search, and our fingers are crossed, because Mike Rancourt is not replaceable. He was one of the best teachers at the school, and he wasn't faculty, and he never taught a class, but he taught by example. He taught just the you know, he was just this incredibly open-hearted man, and I don't know how we're going to replace him. Danny had died, yes, but Danny was very sad and sudden. But Danny had retired quite a while ago. So
there's actually an article in the paper about Danny,
yeah,
and how he works with his students and what effect he had on the students.
Yeah, I mean, he also was an amazing iconoclast and great, you know, source of energy at the college. We have a wonderful. We actually took that position, and we have a guy who's only part-time. His name's Chip Schoonmaker. He's quite talented. But we put the person in charge of the shop, the technical person in the shop is now used to be like a part-time job. We made that position full-time, so we have this kind of teach by example thing going on in the costume shop now that we used to have in my grant court with a guy named Richard McPike, who's also really great. So that aspect of things is quite healthy. But frankly, we haven't had a set design person in years. The college won't give us the money for it. We do a lot with very little money and very little staff, frankly. And it's hard. It's hard to find the people who are willing to jump in and do a lot with very little, like Mike Rankart, yeah.
You just barely there mentioned technical, but you haven't mentioned rigging, electrical, sound, costumes,
Yeah.
lighting.
Yes, so, yeah, well, we have Michael Giannitti has been teaching lighting there for a long time. Lighting is very robust at Bennington because of the robust dance program, right? So lighting designers who are interested in both dance and theater is our special breed, and they are the more creative breed, frankly, and so Michael Giannitti has been teaching there a long time, since the mid-90s. We actually are suffering from a master electrician issue right now. We've replaced and replaced and replaced. They never pay these people enough money to keep them here. And it's also, as you all know, it's hard if you're a 27-year-old guy, the last one we had, master electrician, single 27-year-old guy, he can't fraternize with the students. It's not a real cool scene here at Bennington College. I mean, in Bennington, Vermont. He's living downtown Bennington. How often can he go to the Madison Grill? You know what I mean? It's hard. It's hard to keep them in this area, unless maybe they have family, So we're fingers crossed on the next technical director. But students take classes in these areas. Every student, so they say, if a student says, I just want to take acting classes, and what else are you going to do? Well, if they say, oh, well, I'm studying poetry. Are you going to do advanced work in poetry? Are you doing advanced work in literature? Oh, yes. All right, fine. Take as many acting classes as you want. But if they say, my plan is in drama, but I only want to take acting classes, we're like, no. So that's why we don't have set paths, for people, but we have this plan process in which the faculty members say, well, where's your theater history class? Why didn't you take a stage management class? Why didn't you take a playwriting class? So we ask for breadth and depth within the program, regardless of what area they're interested in. It's interesting, the students sometimes say to me, well, how come the faculty production got so much, money? Meanwhile, I can't tell you how little money we spent. All we bought was carpeting, because there is no megachurch in the world without carpeting. Stairs, carpet. But other than that, we didn't. And part of it is there were a group of 3 students who did the lights in a tutorial situation. There was a class of, I think, 4 or 5 students who did the costumes. And then of course there was a band, and all the students in the choir, that was a 2-credit class. And then everybody in the play, it's actual class.
Set design?
Well, in this case, set design was a faculty member because there was nobody else. But usually it's a student. I've done plays. I think Sally saw the August Osage County, which was this huge 3-story set that was. And some of the students were like, "How come the faculty production got such money for the set?" We're like, "It was Allie's advanced work." And they're like, "Oh, Allie, my friend Allie. Oh, right." Oh, and then Shay did the props. Oh, yeah, Shay, my friend Shay. Yeah, it was that kind of thing. Yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.